Good morning on this Sunday, February 13th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. Georgia's governor says he wants to do away with school mask mandates as the Democrat who wants to replace him apologized for not wearing a mask in a photo with students. Also, a federal judge threatens to delay Georgia's primaries over the state's new maps. And Republicans in Georgia's Senate vote to erect a statue on the grounds of the state capitol of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, but some Democrats say he's not worthy. Melita, Phil, Theron, and Martha are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Governor Brian Kemp weighs in on whether students should be forced to wear masks to schools. He says it should be up to parents rather than school administrators.
It is my belief that parents have the tools that they need to best take care of their children. And, that's why I think we should just let parents decide whether their kids need to be masked or not.
Governor Brian Kemp says he wants to push for legislation that would take the power to determine school mask protocols away from public school leaders. He says there are a small number of districts who are ignoring the science and that enough is enough.
We haven't had statewide mask mandates here. We haven't had vaccine mandates from state government here. I've been very firm on that issue, but you're even seeing Democratic governors that are coming out and getting rid of their mask mandates. It's time for the schools to do that as well.
Governor Kemp says he's all for local control, but he's been patient on this mask issue. He plans to work with his floor leaders to introduce the legislation soon. Martha, I'll start with you this week. Just your thoughts.
He's absolutely right. This should be a parental decision at this point in time. It's not necessary to have a mask mandate, especially since the CDC has now said that masks really don't make any difference unless you're going to wear an N95. And I don't see kids in an N95 mask. I've got young grandchildren, and the emotional problems that it has caused them in school, being masked up for their entire school career, it's a problem.
Darren, let's talk about this because a lot of suburban moms who are a very important voting bloc are frustrated that their kids have to still wear masks to school. Is this something that the governor has hit on?
Well, I think it's all moms, not just suburban moms. But I will tell you, Lori, as I sort of travel throughout Atlanta, I am hearing more and more people say that they're sort of wanting to move past this mask phase, but they're not going as far as to say, hey, we should just totally not wear masks at all. I don't think that the majority of people in Georgia are there yet. But I will say, Martha and Phil, you guys have been saying this, there is a growing sort of pushback about the mask. But the thing that I think that the governor is doing here is that look at the timing of this suggestion, right? It's right after, which I know we'll talk about later, where his soon-to-be opponent, or maybe his opponent, he still has a primary, was sort of photographed not wearing a mask. So the timing of it politically was good. But ultimately, I think he's a little contradictory when he says that he believes in local control, because honestly, it's left up to these local school boards to follow the science, for them to make the decision to whether or not they should lift the mandate or not. And so, but he did say that he's been cooperative with them. But ultimately, this decision should be left up to the parents, but more importantly, to the local school boards.
Well, and just one quick comment to finish up, just what my thoughts were. It's just this overkill. You saw in the picture, the kid's got a mask on, a plexiglass shield around him, and the desks are 6 feet apart. Okay, that is like triple overkill on this. If they've got plexiglass and 6 feet apart, they don't need a mask.
Phil, I want to revisit this issue because the Democrats are going after the governor about this local control.
Well, it's a freedom issue and freedom of choice. And I've heard my Democratic colleagues here saying, oh, we have to have mandates, we have for vaccine and for masks. People are sick of it. The Omicron variant is very low now. I think that the mandates on masks hurt young children especially. There's science on that. It's hurt small businesses. So the governor's right. I think there's a rebellion against the Democrat mandates all over.
Melita, the governor says these school systems that still have these mask mandates in place are just ignoring the science and that the cases are coming down. So your thoughts?
The cases are coming down, and that's wonderful. But we don't know how this virus will mutate again. We don't know what the next variant will be, and it's not prudent to codify a policy on masks and not leave room for the science for the next mutation, for the next kind of variant.
So people are too stupid to understand the debate and make their own decisions? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that we don't need to put it into law, that it has to be one way or the other.
Well, you're
I
for
think we
mandates.
need
You've
room.
always been
We
for
need
mandates.
room for science to be followed when the virus mutates
We haven't
again.
followed
All right,
science
Theron,
for 2 years.
real quickly, and then we'll move on
Well,
to
I
Stacey
think also
Abrams.
this is sort of a legal slippery slope as well, because what the governor is suggesting is that the parent makes a decision. He or she says, all right, I don't want my child to wear a mask when they get to school. But it's the school's responsibility to make sure they do everything they can within their power to prevent that student from getting COVID-19.
And all
and
the
teachers.
other
And
students
administrators,
and
right.
teachers
Yeah.
around the student who's not wearing a mask and possibly spreading the virus.
So that's what I'm saying. So basically, if you're saying that the parent makes a decision, now if the child goes to the school and catches COVID in the school, then who's liable for the child actually?
Well, we don't know if the kid gets it from school, right?
Well, and they've
Get it
also
from the
said now
playground or
asymptomatic
from
spread is a
baseball or
fallacy.
soccer.
So-
Right.
But what the mask will do
Yes.
is will limit that ability for the child to get it at the
The
school.
debate
Now,
is the masks aren't working, though.
but see, you're contradicting yourself. You can't come on the show and say, hey, the numbers are going down. That's the reason why we should actually not. We should lift the mask mandate, because the mask, we know, the science says that one of the reasons why the numbers are coming down is because people are wearing their masks. But then you can't then say that if the children don't wear the mask at the school, then the numbers are
This
going to
is
go
the
up.
K through 12. You know this. K through 12 is the lowest risk. And
Okay, but let me just move on, because we got a lot to talk about. We could go on for masks, obviously, forever, but we are still going to talk about
Well, I
masks.
got my mask
because
right here. All right, let everybody know.
We're going to go over to the Democrat Stacey Abrams, who is running to replace Governor Kemp. Theron mentioned this. She came under fire for this picture of her not wearing a mask, and a lot of the students, all of the students were, all of the teachers behind her were. So, Theron, was this a mess up on her part? We usually don't see blunders. I mean, she did come out and apologize.
3 days later.
Well, you taught me very well not to repeat the negative part of your question. No, I think she apologized, and that was the right thing to do. She said that she was excited because she was in this moment speaking to kids that I think were either in her district once upon a time or close to a district she represented. It was a 4-day story that could have probably been a 1-day story. What was not talked about, and I know that her campaign wanted folks to talk about this, is that how Fair Fight Action gave $1.35 million to 5 states to basically pay people's medical debts, right? So instead of talking about that, talking about Medicaid expansion, they did spend too much time talking about a picture that ultimately she apologized for.
I have these two just smirking.
But the
because,
best-
I mean, was this a gift for Republicans?
This
And
was
how
a
long will
gift.
this gift last?
This was the gift, and the second gift, the best moment of the week, was the next day in Daybook. It has been there for about a week, but the next day in Daybook was an ad for a social media coordinator for the Stacey Abrams campaign. And I had the best laugh of the week because liberals and conservatives saw that as funny. If you watch the Twitter feed on it, everybody was having a laugh off of it because it was funny. Come on.
Melita, I mean, when the women of The View are like, she messed
You
up.
have to apologize in politics quickly if you're going to get control
And
of
not
the
take
situation.
something down, right?
Well,
she
but-
had the picture and then took it down.
You don't delete
it's out
things
there.
on social media. It's already
Well,
out there.
I think it was the school which made the deletion first. But she had the grace and the humility to apologize, and we don't often see that from anybody in public life from both parties.
It took her
And
3
so
days.
but she did it. A lot of
Well, it took her
Republicans or
months to admit
Democrats
she
don't.
lost the election.
That's
so.
true. Yeah, she's still the governor, isn't she? Doesn't she believe that?
But I think what it also says, if you take the partisanship out of it, right? That's the era we're living in now, right? Like literally one picture, one mistake. If she could have probably had her mask on, I'm sure she would have wanted that picture to get out with the mask on. But there were not just one, there were a couple. But anything that you do now when you're on the ballot, whether it's not wearing your mask or saying things that you shouldn't say, or just even being sort of next to someone, it can all be amplified by your opponents.
And if she had worn that mask while reading her book to the children, she could have been criticized for the children who are hearing impaired not being able to read her lips.
I don't think
picture's worth 1,000 words,
I
is
don't
what
think
I'm gonna
anybody had a
say.
problem with when you're reading taking the mask off. It's when she stopped reading, and as an elitist, she felt that she can do anything she wants.
I think everybody should have their mask off. So anyway.
There we go. All right, everybody. Coming up, could a federal judge delay Georgia's primaries over the state's new maps? We'll discuss after the break.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
U.S. District Judge Steve Jones could possibly delay Georgia's primaries if he finds the state's new political maps weaken the representation of African American voters. Phil, I'll go to you first. Judge Jones says he could change the whole calendar after hearing all of the evidence next week.
That would be a radical move by the judge, and I don't see it. I think that, number one, think about it, May 24th are the party primaries. And all the campaigns have pretty much gotten their plans in place with fundraising, with timing, direct mail, for example, television, et cetera, et cetera. Over in Alabama, they also have May 24th as their primary date, and the maps were approved. And what did the judge said? It's too late. You guys are too late to sue.
Belita, is it too late?
Well, actually, in 2020, the presidential primaries were delayed, and so it's not necessarily too late. And we also still have a legislature still drawing county commission and school board maps. None of those are finalized. So the judge might have more than one reason to delay this map.
That's a good point about they were delayed because of COVID.
Well, they're going to be running on the current maps for those local races. They've already made a determination on that. But Steve Jones, you know, look, I love Steve. I've known him a long time. I think the problem is he can't change the federal election general election day. He doesn't have that power to change that one. So if he changes the primary, what he does is gives less time between the end of the primary and the general election, which is a problem for anybody that's in a contested race. Even Democrats have contested races because then they have less time to coalesce and then get into the general election.
But the thing I want to quickly sort of point out here is that, you know, Judge Steve Jones is an objective judge, right? And he's very objective. And the fact that he's actually taking the time to look at this and listen thoroughly to the evidence that was presented. And we've said on the show, Republicans can put forth a map, and it was a partisan map, which Democrats have done too previously, but it's left up to the legal system and the judges and people who have problems with the map to present the evidence. So I encourage
I don't know why he said that, though. Why say that and just cause this
But I encourage Judge
uproar.
Jones to do what he thinks is right, use his judgment, and if he feels like these maps blatantly decrease black population voting in the state of Georgia, black voting age population, then they should be thrown out, and we should do it out because we can't go backwards in this state. But I think that Republicans had to know before they put these maps up that it was going to receive legal challenges, and it's left up to this judge, who's a friend of mine, Judge Jones, and I'm saying that he watches this show, that he needs to do the right thing and stand on principle in this decision and let the evidence speak for itself.
But the evidence has to speak for itself, and the right thing doesn't mean he falls on your side. You just depend on where it happens.
But you got to take partisanship out of it. Again,
you can't. And the courts have ruled you can be partisan in your map
drawing
making.
the map. But if your maps basically violates the Voting Rights Act and it decreased black voting age population, that's a violation.
That's going to be hard to
let's
prove.
move on to another Jones, right? This week, Vernon Jones announced he won't run for governor in the Republican primary. Instead, Martha, he's going to run for Congress in the 10th District and says on day one, he'll introduce articles of impeachment if elected against President Biden and Vice President Harris. And he got the endorsement of President Trump.
Yeah, and I had Mike Collins on because he's in the trucking business, the lead candidate in that race. And, you know, they're going to be going after Vernon pretty strongly. You know, I can't say much about district shopping. I don't like district shopping. I stood against it when Senator Ossoff was running in a district he didn't live in back several years ago. I didn't like it when Marjorie Taylor Greene ran in a district she wasn't living in. I don't like it when Vernon Jones does it. I think you should live, even though the law says you don't have to live in the district, you should live in the district. But Vernon's getting in kind of late. These guys talking about, you made the point about organization and all that kind of stuff. He spent all the money he raised for his governor's race. He couldn't use it in a congressional race anyway. I think it's kind of late to get in, even with the former president's endorsement.
Right, and just to kind of dovetail on what Martha's saying, there's 10 candidates in the 10th district. That is one of the most right-wing districts in a lot of rural areas, and he's going to struggle to get in the runoff. I think it was the art of the deal that President Trump did. I think he wanted to get Vernon out of the gubernatorial primary, and he just wanted to go into the 10th.
Well, it lessens the likelihood of a runoff.
It
in
does,
the governor's
but
race,
you've still
in the
got
primary.
3 others in the Republican primary, including Candace Taylor, and she could conceivably be a spoiler to push that into a runoff. So it solved part of the problem, but not the entire problem.
She has no money.
She's still a name on the ballot.
All right, real quick, Senator Raphael Warnock is out with his first ad saying, "I see you, I hear you, I am you." Phil, your thoughts on his message?
Well, I had to chuckle. He's great at these BS ads that are feel good, and I think that he doesn't want to talk about the fact that he's been a puppet of Joe Biden and voting for virtually everything. Whether just the other day he voted against withdrawing the mandate for masks in schools. I mean, it's typical Democrat. I mean, I would like an independent Democrat like a Joe Manchin or a Kristen Sinema. Why can't we have that? He just, and we're talking about inflation, high grocery prices. He has no idea as to how to deal with that.
Darren.
So all those things that Phil just mentioned, he mentioned it in the ad. He said, "I hear you." So Phil, guess what? He heard you.
Yeah.
But I think what the ad actually did, Lori, for me, is that he is pushing for, hey, I'm not just a politician, because before he was saying I wasn't a politician, but now, listen, I'm one of you. And I think the ad really highlighted a lot of issues that Georgians care about. He looked great. He sounded great. The ad was diverse. And I think that Republicans will tell you, they won't say it on the show or publicly, but they thought that he had probably the best television ads during the entire 2020-2021 cycle.
I said that.
I said that
You've all
on the
said that.
show.
Yeah.
We've all
And
said
so-
that.
but-
Wrong again.
But the thing is that, you know, Phil criticizes the ad, right? Because now you're seeing the Republican playbook, and that is to loop him into a president who right now is not as popular as he
But
once
he has
was.
a record now. He didn't have a
He
record
does.
back
Okay,
then.
hold on. Let Melita finish, and then I got to go to break.
But Warnock can at least speak for himself. The Herschel ad has other people talking about him.
We'll hear from Herschel, I'm sure. But Phil, he may hear you, but I don't think he's listening to you.
No, he's not.
Just saying.
Nor to the voice of the majority of Georgians.
Coming up, Democrats oppose a plan to honor Supreme Court Justice and Georgian Clarence Thomas. We'll discuss after the break.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
Republicans in the state Senate passed a bill that would honor Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas by placing a statue on Capitol grounds. Martha, though, no supports from Democrats on this one.
Well, they made a mistake. I mean, Clarence Thomas is a great Georgian, has an amazing story of what he has overcome throughout his life. He's accomplished to one of the highest positions in the country, and he's done a great job as a justice. So he should be, he should be recognized as one of the great Georgians, and it shouldn't matter that he's a Republican. It should be, or that he was a Republican and now he's a justice. I think it should be that he's a great Georgian, and he is.
Let's talk about this, Theron, because State Senator Nikki Merritt had some pretty strong words here, saying Democrats think that Justice Thomas is a hypocrite and a traitor.
I think to Martha's point, no one is disputing his story. I mean, if you really look at the story of Clarence Thomas, being a Georgia-born person, how he basically went from, being a lawyer and becoming a Supreme Court justice, the highest,
And coming from nothing.
I'm getting to that,
Yeah,
Martha.
okay.
Yeah. So we're not disputing the story, right? And as a Georgia boy myself, I have many friends who actually in the legal community look up to Clarence Thomas. But I think that what you saw from the Democrats, particularly in the Senate, there was two things that were questioned. One, his record, which is very questionable of not just Democrats, but even some Republicans. And then I think there's also this theme that we should be actually building statues for people that we all can build a consensus around, right? Like this is a person who actually the statue should be built for, not while they're still alive. And so there was just a bunch of points that the Democrats wanted. One, we should not be doing that. And I think Senator Halpern sort of talked about this a little bit in her statement. And then also people question his record, but also people were saying, hey, why don't we introduce someone that we can build a consensus around? And it was clear on the vote that you could not build a consensus vote around this proposal for Clarence Thomas.
Phil.
Will you condemn Senator Nikki Merritt for claiming that Clarence Thomas is a traitor to his race? That's outrageous. It's insulting.
It's not my responsibility.
Oh, you're not going to, you condemn.
And I know
listen,
Senator,
you condemned Trump for what, 4 years? Come on, you're not going to condemn Nikki
No,
Merritt?
I will not. She's a great
You know
senator,
what? You're
and
not going
I
to get
stand by her.
anyone. You're not going to get anyone to have uniformity on honoring someone. He was a son of Georgia. He did all of these good things. He's a constitutionalist. You don't like that, I guess, but he should be honored.
Melita, would you be okay honoring him after?
I believe that we should wait until he is no longer living and have the debate then, just as is the tradition that statues are erected after someone is gone.
I think we have a Zell Miller, don't we? Somewhere? I don't know. Before.
I was going to say he's passed.
I know, but before.
Phil, I want to ask you, because there's a lot of back and forth about Sonny Perdue and his chances of becoming chancellor of the university system. Can you give us kind of a behind-the-scenes take on this?
Sure. We're taping on a Friday, and during our taping, the Board of Regents are meeting, and they've interviewed some folks for the chancellor of the university system over 26 colleges and universities. He will be the sole finalist. And then there's a little process that goes on, and then when they have that 10, 15-day window, he'll be named Chancellor of the University of Georgia. Why? The Regents' seats have changed, so now there's a majority to put in Perdue.
Melita, there have been some protests about his candidacy because he's never been in the education world.
It's not just that. He was dogged by ethics complaints as governor, as agriculture secretary. Before he took that job, he got a sweetheart deal from Archer Daniels Midland for a $250,000 grain facility that they had paid $5.5 million for. He was a disaster as ag secretary. His rollout of those food boxes was dogged by criticism of cronyism. He ignored the World Health Organization recommendations about antibiotics for livestock that will later become part of the food chain. So approving him as chancellor is a slap in the face of all the scientists and doctors who work within the university system.
Martha.
You know, he was a governor for 2 terms where he managed multiple agencies, including the university system, and I think he's qualified for the job. And as I've said many times here before, he's going to get this job, okay? And we'll see what happens. Now, the 2-pronged problem with that could be, one, Sachs may come in and investigate whether he's qualified and may make a determination, or other folks may contest it. But I think he's definitely qualified, I mean, to do it, because when you manage one thing, you have the skills to manage something else.
All right, we're going to move on. DeKalb CEO Michael Thurmond announced this week he's pushing for a $14 million pay raise for police and other public safety officials. Theron, this was a bold move by your friend, the CEO.
Yeah, he is my friend. Look,
he's all of our friends.
Yeah, he is. Thank you. And I feel he's your friend too.
Of course, I've known him probably longer than all of you.
But Lori, and I'm glad you came to me on that. I was going to make the winners the public safety officials, all of the people on the front line, with this amazing opportunity for them to be supported with funding that they deserve. And you just got to really thank the commission and also the CEO for basically using the funding that they're getting to basically deal with some of the crime problems and using innovative ways to deal with it. So the winners are truly the men and women who are on the front line every single day in DeKalb County.
Phil, do you think we'll see some other jurisdictions step up?
You know, you were just knowing what I was thinking. If only new Mayor Andre Dickens of Atlanta would propose a nice pay increase to try to retain people. Why don't you give him a call or text him?
I got to say this, and you know, former Mayor Bottom still watches this show, and one of the things that she pushed back on me was that when we talked about Thurmond sort of doing a lot with his money, she did also do a lot before she left, a lot of working with the federal government and the president to put millions and millions of dollars into the APD.
And then handcuffing the police.
And Mayor Dickens will be able to carry that on.
I've got to wrap it to save time for winners and losers. Stay tuned, everyone.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
Well, before we start, I want to mention that we just left a beautiful and moving ceremony for our patriarch, Dick Williams, and his wife, Rebecca. His 2 daughters spoke, gave a beautiful eulogy, and gosh, we miss Dick and we'll miss him and all of his antics going forward. But it was beautiful, and we just want to say our prayers are with his family. So, Phil, over to you for winners and losers.
Well said, Lori. I've got a winner, my friend and colleague, Martha Zoller. She is now the interim director of the Georgia Life Alliance, the voice and the face, so best wishes to you on that. I've got a couple other winners, Governor Brian Kemp and Attorney General Chris Carr on their long overdue gang initiative, which would allow the Attorney General of the state to get into a multi-jurisdictional situation when it comes to prosecuting and investigating gangs. We all know it's a gang crisis in this state, and so I hope this passes the legislature. And shockingly, Democrat Jen Jordan, the Attorney General, voted no on this. I don't believe it.
Theron.
Definitely want to make Larry Dingle my winner. Unfortunately, he passed away this week. He's a well-respected lawyer, particularly with zoning and construction law. I was talking to Ernest Greer and Solicitor General Keith Gamage, and we were just all reminiscing about how he made so many of our lives better. So definitely want to send my condolences to him. And also want to make a winner Atlanta Police Department Officer David Rogers. You guys probably saw that this week. He was attempting to arrest a gang member, serve a warrant. He's been on the force for 11 years, was shot by this gang member, and so he's recovering well. Definitely want to make him a winner. And then lastly, been seeing a lot of young people at the Capitol. Keep coming down there, lobbying, and encourage you all to do it while wearing your mask. Thank you.
All right, Martha.
Oh gosh, Georgia Power Foundation is a winner this week. They gave a substantial donation to the Family Justice Center, which helps with women that are going through domestic violence and helping with all the issues related to that. So they're a winner. Also, the work that's being done on this mental health bill, it's really moving through. People are working together, and it's really so important. And then my loser this week is Governor Gavin Newsom, because he is going to lift the mask mandate in California on the 15th, which is 2 days after the Super Bowl. I don't see what 48 hours means, and they're not going to be able to enforce it anyway. So we'll see.
All right, Belita, got about 30 seconds.
Well, my winner is an Atlanta legend, Janice Rothschild Bloomberg, who celebrates her 98th birthday this week, and the forthcoming memoir for her remarkable 98 years. She's a winner, and I wish her a happy birthday.
Great, and we will leave it there. Thank you, everybody, and a happy Valentine's to everybody and all your sweethearts. So thank you so much. We will see you again next week. Bye-bye.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.